a lot of women, when I tell them do the 30-33, which I'll explain to you in a second, all of a sudden their perimenopause symptoms go away because you're strengthening your gut, and the gut is able to kind of help you manage those changes. And so that 30-33 is 30 grams of protein in the morning, 30 grams of fiber throughout the day, and 3 servings of probiotic foods.
Okay, Dr. Amy Shah, welcome to the show for either the second or the third time.
I think it's the third.
Oh my God, listen, you are and not a lot of people hit the 3 mark on Heal
Oh,
Thyself.
thank you. I'm so
So
honored.
when they said, Amy is going to be in town, I
Yeah.
said, the guy who works for me goes, how about this person? I go, this person's been on my show 2 times already. So it's already a yes. So I'm such a pleasure to have
Thank
you on.
you.
For people who don't know, I went back on my story archive on Instagram. One of the first people that I reposted, I think it was the first ever person, 2016, was you.
Wow.
I reposted. I have to show it to
I
you
was
on my
like
phone.
barely, I mean, that was like way back when.
2016.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you. It was like, because stories came up
Yeah.
like a little later.
Yeah.
So I saw something you posted that I really resonated with. So I reposted it.
Aw.
And I was surprised. I was like, wow, I've known Amy or her work for so long.
I mean, it's like almost 10 years.
That's crazy.
How crazy is
How is
that?
it crazy? Oh my
Like,
God.
how are you even, like, you're not even, I don't feel like 10 years. It feels like yesterday, 2016, right?
Yeah, viewers and listeners, what was 10 years ago? Because it feels like really, really, really fast that it's went
Yes.
by, the timing. But anyway, that's how much I have admired all your work. I still follow you. I still watch your videos. I love how creative they are, how fun, how engaging they are. I love when you're doing stuff with your daughter, and I see the dynamic between you and your daughter. But today, we got some conversations to have. Hormones.
Yes.
Hormones. I know you love working with hormones, perimenopause, menopause, even when younger. And we look at this big picture on hormones, right? And so many men and women, but especially women, manifesting so many of the issues with hormonal dysfunction. I'm going to ask you right from the get-go, what's the biggest driver of hormonal dysfunction that we're seeing? What is happening that so many women are now going to doctor more and more? I have acne, I have infertility, I have period pains, everything's going wrong. What's going on?
That's a great question. That's like a loaded question, because I think you have to go back to that gut health, like that gut brain hormone connection. So when you have like trillions of organisms that live inside of your gut, and they're constantly communicating with your hormones, your brain. And so when you feel exhausted and when you feel sad, anxious, you have bad periods, your hormones are off, it's often a result of that misaligned gut microbiome. And that's so much of that is nutrition.
Nutritional. So you're saying we're eating more poorly than we were 10 years ago or 20 years ago? Or we are?
Well, it's a combination of nutrition and toxins, right? All the things that we are dealing with that kill our gut microbes, right? Or alter that gut microbiome. And then the stress in our lives. I mean, it seems like we have so much information coming at us at all times. And our bodies are not capable of taking in this much information 24/7, not getting proper rest and nature time, relaxation. So it's a combination, but I think the base is like, what's your input, the inputs, the food, the thoughts, the toxins, all of those are inputs, right? And that creates that misalignment in that gut microbiome, which causes all of the problems, the hormone, the brain. You talk all about, how it's all connected.
So for people listening, they're going to go, okay, what does my gut have anything to do with my hormones?
Yes.
What's the bridge there where an imbalanced gut is imbalancing the hormones?
Okay, so when your gut microbiome wants to add more estrogen into your body, men and women, there's like a special gut bacteria. It's called like the estrobolome. And they actually can add estrogen back into your system, like recirculate it if you're getting low. So for women in perimenopause, for example, when you're like starting to get lower on the estrogen, if you have really great gut health, your gut bacteria are pumping that back into your system. And if you have very poor gut health, your hormones get dysregulated because, number one, your gut is sending inflammatory signals all over your body. And when inflammatory signals is hormonal signals, cortisol goes up, that's a hormone, right? And so you end up suppressing the other hormones. So when you think about it, the gut is constantly communicating with all of our organs about what hormones should be released, what hormones should be recycled, what hormones should be kind of packaged and excreted through the gut. So you excrete a lot of old hormones that you don't need. And so when you have a really healthy gut, it's almost like your own internal hormone balancing system. And when you really don't feed your gut, or you don't, you're eating a lot of toxins, or you're eating a lot of antibiotics, say, for example, then the gut cannot send signals, the proper signals. And that those inflammatory signals are signals, but they're signals to raise cortisol. Yeah. And that in turn makes downstream effects that like imbalance your hormones.
Okay, so then what is the implication of constipation with the estrobolome?
Yeah, so if you can't excrete your hormones, often they get recirculated. So people who are constipated, if your body decides, if your gut microbiome decides like, hey, we're going to excrete a bunch of hormones out. We don't need these. These are old. These are doing bad things. We're going to throw that out with the trash. And then the trash is not collected for like days and days and weeks sometimes. Some of that trash gets reabsorbed. And some of that trash just sits there and you just don't have room for more trash. So you're literally stopping the detox systems of your body, the natural detox system of your body, by being constipated all the time.
So if you're not pooping and you're not taking out the hormonal trash, the excess, then is more estrogen coming back into the body? Could someone be estrogen dominant if they don't poop?
Yeah. So the what we don't really understand just yet is like how much, like how is that decision made? Why is some people absorb more, some people's estrogen gets, sent back. Our gut bacteria are constantly making decisions about our hormones all the time. So the estrobolome is constantly deciding whether they should put some estrogen back into the system. And like I said, this is something for women who are like in their 40s and 50s, even 35 up, should know this, because as you start to move closer to menopause, where you have little to no estrogen, you're really relying on that estrobolome for a lot of the estrogen in your body. So although estrogen dominance has been kind of like vilified in the media, as you get into those years, you actually want some of that estrogen back into your system. And so it's like that good estrogen is how I would phrase it. So that's why it's so important, especially as you age, to work on that gut health, because not only is it going to help you recirculate estrogen, it's going to help you excrete the toxins. It's going to help you communicate with your brain, communicate with your other organs about what's happening. So it's like maybe like the magic pill for women over 35.
Okay, so to clear for people listening, what are some signs or symptoms of high estrogen right now that people may be going through?
Okay, so let's put it this way. There's two different phases in your life, okay? There's a phase in your life where you're making, your ovaries are releasing hormones monthly, very normal, and it's kind of stable for most women. And then you're eating foods, often unhealthy foods, and that will throw off your balance of your estrogen, or you're not exercising, or you're having a lot of endocrine disruptors in your life and all this PFAS and all this stuff, right? So those things will cause a not necessarily estrogen imbalance in your blood tests, but biologically an estrogen imbalance, right? As you move into your late 30s, 40s, and 50s, you have this kind of like roller coaster of estrogen and progesterone. It's almost like 1 month it's like high, and then the next month it's low, and then the third month it's like medium. And so you almost get both estrogen dominant symptoms and estrogen kind of low estrogen symptoms. And that's why perimenopause can be a very, very difficult time, because it's like going up and down. When your estrogen levels are impacted, when they're really high, you could start getting a lot of fat gain, especially in your midsection or your butt and back area. If you're get a lot of fatigue, it can be changes in your cycle. There's mood related changes. So there's a lot of things that happen. But the nuance here is that women that are in their teens and 20s and early 30s versus the women that are kind of getting closer to that menopausal age, what estrogen is doing in response to bad diet changes a little bit. Does that make sense?
It changes as we get older, you're saying.
Yes.
So 20s,
yes,
you're saying that women have more resiliency with their estrogen?
yeah.
Okay.
And it's almost like it's cycling, but it's cycling predictably. And yes, there's stuff that we're doing with our environment, diet, exercise that is throwing it off balance. And of course, conditions like PCOS and endometriosis that also throw it off. But when you get into your late 30s, 40s, and 50s, you have this roller coaster of high estrogen, low estrogen, high estrogen. Like you'll have all kinds of weird symptoms that look like high estrogen maybe for a month, but then it looks like low estrogen for a month.
I see. So for the women in their late 30s, in their 40s and 50s, the monthly changes is like, what's happening to my body? It's going haywire?
Yes. So it's like you're feel like crazy one month and everything is off. It's like high estrogen symptoms, and then the next month, everything's back to normal. And then the third month, you're like, oh my God, I feel like my skin's so dry and my hair is falling out, like low estrogen symptoms.
I see. And is this biological or is it influenced by now at this point nutrition and toxins?
It's completely both. It's both biological and influenced by nutrition and toxins. So yes, it happens to everyone, but the amplitude of like the symptoms and the how much your body and your gut can be resilient to it changes based on your health. So a lot of women, when I tell them do the 30-33, which I'll explain to you in a second, all of a sudden their perimenopause symptoms go away because you're strengthening your gut and the gut is able to kind of help you manage those changes. And so that 30-33 is 30 grams of protein in the morning, 30 grams of fiber throughout the day, and 3 servings of probiotic foods.
Okay. For probiotic foods, what are those for people who don't know?
Yeah, probiotic foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, probiotic yogurt, and cottage cheese, kefir, natto, the Japanese like soybeans. I love those. But some people don't love those. But there's a lot of fermented food options now. It has to be, if you're getting a yogurt, it can't be the one with like the M&Ms on top. It's like some yogurts in the US now are not probiotic and some cottage cheeses are not probiotic. So you do have to read the label, but getting a few of those every day is going to literally change your gut health.
Okay. Beautiful. Why 30 grams of protein for hormonal health?
30 grams of protein in your first meal, okay? What it does for women in perimenopause, for example, 35 plus in their 40s, 50s, and beyond. What it does is that it sets your cravings to be even for the day. So when you start your first meal, it doesn't have to be 6 a.m. It can be whenever you have your first meal. And often women can't control their lives. They're living crazy lives of kids. They have work. They have all these things going on. And so having one meal to concentrate on the protein, it would be your first meal. So you calm your cravings, you feed your gut. And everybody knows that, when you're eating more protein in your diet, you actually, will have better retainment of your muscle mass as you age. So if you're pairing your protein with weight training, for example, you really have a chance to maintain some of that muscle mass that you're losing. And so having it first thing in the morning is it's the best way to start off your day, to not only have less cravings, feed your gut bacteria, but also get some fuel so that you can either go to the gym, work out, or do something, even wear a weighted vest and get some more muscle and bone mass.
And how does more muscle and bone mass translate to better hormones? As much as we focus on what we eat, It's just as important to consider how we prepare our food. That's where Our Place comes in. They're revolutionizing the way we cook with their new amazing cast iron line. For 4 months, I've been using Our Place's cast iron pans in my kitchen. It is a game changer. I'm going to tell you what sets them apart. They're enameled. That means unlike traditional cast irons, they're not going to rust. They're incredibly easy to use and to clean. But for me, I will not bring a pot or a pan that is not meeting Proposition 65 standards. That means heavy metals are not being released into the food that you're cooking through the pan. And because it's under Proposition 65, that means you're not being exposed to things like cadmium, lead, mercury, nickel, and even excess amounts of iron that can get in your food from cast iron pans. They're aesthetically beautiful, they're stylish, and really, if you're looking to upgrade your cookware, this is something that's not just functional, but also health conscious. Can't recommend it enough. Our Place is amazing. I want you to give it a try. They have the best cast iron pans, and I love cast iron. I always recommend it. They're offering a 100-day trial with free shipping and returns. I want you to head over to FromOurPlace.com. Use the code DRG at checkout. You're going to receive 10% off site-wide. That is FromOurPlace.com. The code is DRG. If you love the podcast and you want to be down with the Dr. G Heal Thyself community, we give incredible tips every single week on getting a healthier physical, mental, and emotional body. The newest updates of my favorite products, the newest updates of my favorite practices. Stay in the loop by joining the Dr. G community. All you got to do is go to any one of my posts on Instagram and comment the word news. You'll get a DM to join.
So as you know, our muscle is not just, it's hormonally active. So it can help you with your insulin resistance. So people, for example, the way you would think about it is like, it's not just like, muscle is not just like good to look at or like good to even just lift things. It's actually hormonally active. So it can have, boost your testosterone levels. It can help you balance your blood sugars. So insulin resistance. So it's really helpful for your hormones, and really great because as we get older and we start to lose our hormones, so that perimenopause, how I was telling you, you kind of had this up and down, but it's up and down and it's starting to get lower and lower amplitudes every month until menopause happens. And what's happening there is when you don't have estrogen consistently, there is not a stimulus to keep that muscle mass and that bone mass. Both estrogen, there's estrogen receptors in muscle and bone. And when you start to lose that estrogen, you start to lose muscle and bone at rates that are insane. Like, you go up to 1 to 3% of muscle mass a year during perimenopause and late menopause. And that is something that you have to fight against through, eating enough protein, doing resistance training. And so that's where that nutrition really comes in.
And to get ahead of it, should the women listening right now who are 23, 24,
Yes.
is that the right time or what?
Yes.
What immediately?
So you want to bank as much muscle and bone as you can in your teens and 20s so that when you are in that perimenopausal state where you're starting to lose some of that bone mass and muscle mass, you have so much to start with. That's the real benefit. I always, when I'm talking to people in their teens and 20s, like my daughter and a lot of people I work with are in their teens and 20s, I always tell them, this is your time.
Yeah.
This is your time to bank it. This is your time to lift heavy. This is your time to eat protein. And that way you have so much left when it is on the decline.
And 1 to 3% is a lot
It's
year
a
to
lot.
year.
Yeah.
Think about a decade, how much muscle you can lose in a decade if it's 3% every year.
I know.
It's incredible. By the time you're 50, 60, you've lost so much muscle.
Yeah. So what happens is it's like every decade, it's more. So meaning that in your 30s, it's like 3 to 8% per decade, right? And then in your 40s, it's like, 1% per year. And then it's like in your 50s, it's like going up. So and there's a wide variation. So if you're someone who's consistently eating protein, who's consistently working out, you're not going to lose muscle mass, or probably you could gain muscle mass, right? Whereas the sedentary individual is literally losing it at that rate.
Wow. So aside from hormonal influence, is there an anti-cancer effect as we get older to having more muscle?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, one of the best things you can do for yourself is have a base of muscle. This is for men and women. If you get cancer, one of the biggest ways to kind of withstand both the treatment and the cancer itself is having a base of muscle mass. So not only are sarcopenic, so people who have low muscle mass, sarcopenic patients more likely to die, they're also going to have a lot, like things like chemotherapy contribute to sarcopenia even more. So if you're getting chemo or radiation, you're actually losing more muscle. So if you started with very little, you're not going to do well with those treatments. And so one of the best ways to protect us in case that catastrophic thing were to happen to us or our family members is to stay strong and healthy so that when that happens, if that were to happen, knock on wood, that you are prepared, your body is prepared.
We didn't really prioritize this many years ago.
No.
And now we hear this advent of so much of putting on more muscle, putting on more density, bone strength, support, even like falls when we get older, you know?
Yeah.
So
50% of women
50%.
get a fall.
That's crazy.
Osteoporotic.
That's crazy.
Fracture. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my brother's wife's grandmother, she fell and then she died like 4 months later.
Yeah.
And I still didn't understand the mechanism. What happened? She died. She couldn't walk, and they couldn't give her surgery. And maybe it was a blood clot. I didn't get the full story from him, but
it's like a downward spiral.
It's a downward spiral. Yeah. It literally in 4 months she degraded.
I know.
And it's from a broken hip. It was unbelievable. I go, wow, a broken hip really can.
I know it makes me sad that when we know so much, we're like, no, people are like, let's live to 110, 120, whatever. Yeah. I'm like, we know so much now. Yet we're still making so many mistakes, right? Like as people are living longer, but they're not necessarily living healthy to the end. Mm-hmm. And we got to do a better job of like informing people, like if you want to live healthy into your 90s or 100s and you want to be able to open that jar yourself, get up out of a chair yourself, you have to start now because that decline is inevitable. Yes, you can counteract that. And there are people who actually reverse that. Which is crazy. Like even 90-year-olds can actually build muscle, but we need to be proactive about it. We can't just like sit around and think that, this is just how I am. Like, no, you have to protect against the things that are potentially going to happen to you and often are going to happen to you.
Incredible. Because to all the viewers and listeners, 20s and 30s, especially the women out there,
yes, understand
this is an investment.
Yeah.
You're saying it's a true investment. And at some point, you're going to want to know that you have an investment that's been protecting you. I can't, my partner's in her 20s, right? And she's super active. She's got good muscle. She does Pilates and yoga. And by the time I wake up, she's ran like a mile.
Amazing.
But I tell her, got to eat more protein.
Yes.
Right? Like you got to sustain. And it's a protein part that's really important. And I'm so happy that you said that because we need that. We need it.
I think that, well, what I would tell her, honestly, I would tell her protein, I would tell her fiber and the probiotic foods.
Yes.
And the reason why I say fiber and probiotic foods, like fiber, like 97% of Americans, even if they think that they're healthy, are not getting enough fiber. So we actually have to work really hard to get fiber in our diets. Well, maybe not in like LA, but if you're eating like super healthy or eating at home. But typically, even in LA or New York, where you have access to those things, like 97% of people are not getting enough. So it's like adding those habits of the protein, the fiber, the probiotic foods early, then it becomes kind of like you said, like you're kind of ready, like it's like you're starting out your gut's starting out so robust with so many more billions of bacteria that you're ready to age in a way that is like unlike anybody else. You've seen those pictures that are like, can you believe this person's 40 or 50?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Don't you want to be that person? Like you want to be that person. So that's how you get there.
Yeah, I want to feel good in my body. I want to feel fluid. I want to feel like I could still play with my kids and grandkids.
Yes.
Like I want to be good. And this is something that, for the past few years I've been working on myself, right, as a man and like putting on more muscle
Yes.
and making sure I'm eating. I mean, I have sauerkraut. I'll
Yes.
take a tablespoon before every meal.
Amazing.
And
That's exactly what I'm talking about. 3 spoons and you're done for the
3
day.
spoons, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, before every meal.
Yeah.
Kefir, like one of the best. Like
Yes.
it has like transformed my gut.
I love it.
I put it in, take a shot of it.
So easy.
I did gag the first time I had it because I haven't had dairy anything in years.
Yeah.
So I was like,
Isn't
okay,
that funny? I was the same way. I hadn't had dairy in years before
years.
I learned about the probiotic foods. And then I thought to myself, well, how am I going to get that many probiotic foods if I don't try to add some dairy? So I was like, let me just try a few things. Like I tried probiotic cottage cheese, had no problems.
Mm,
Then I started to do Greek yogurt. I'm like, oh, I can do this. And then
yes.
the kefir, I did. And we went to Europe and they had these like fermented, like kind of yogurt drinks,
Mhm.
and it's so good, and it's like so good for your gut. And I'm like, I'm actually good with that kind of dairy.
It's different. I'm telling you, the kefir has helped change my gut over the span of like 2, 3 months.
Wow.
It's just the baseline's different now.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like things change as you improve your gut. You can change your gut in as little as 3 days. Literally, there's a
Mm.
study that shows that if you drastically change your diet and you start to eat more fiber, more whole foods, more beans, fermented foods, 3 days.
Mm.
So like I can imagine that in 2 months you feel like a different person.
100%.
Yeah.
You said we are under eating fiber. How much fiber are we eating in America that is so severely underwhelming?
It's like so 25 grams is what the American recommendation. I recommend 30 to go above, and the typical American's like eating 17.
That's low.
It's like all of those frappuccinos, the fast foods, everything that is so popular in American culture is 0 to 2 grams of fiber, like very little fiber. It's fiberless food. So basically, it's food that you're eating that is devoid of any kind of signals or food for the gut bacteria.
Yes.
So although you're eating and nourishing yourself, your gut bacteria are starving and dying.
No, that's not what we want, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
That is not what we want.
You do not want those gut bacteria to die.
What's the effect of the hormones then on brain health? Because we were talking about this off air.
Yes.
I feel like as we get older, sometimes we feel like our brain's declining. Like for some reason, I'm not as sharp as I sometimes am, or I
Yes.
really have to get good sleep to
Yes.
ensure. Sometimes I didn't have to sleep, but I was still able to go to class and do my
Yes.
lectures and study. Like we change over time, but is it our hormones or is it other things?
Well, a lot of it is that gut brain hormone connection. So what I mean is our gut and the brain are in constant communication. It's a two-way street. They're literally talking all day long. So when you eat something really poor, inflammatory, you're sending inflammatory signals to the gut, to the brain. And when you think about toxic things, you're getting toxic media,
Mhm.
around toxic people, you're inputting toxic things to your brain. That in turn makes your gut unhealthy. So it's like a two-way street. And so when you feel like you're cloudy, you have brain fog, the first thing you should do is start to change what you're eating to see if you can. A lot of that is that. And then, of course, like you said, stress, like hormones. So when our cortisol is really high and you think you're in danger, your body does not want you to, you're incapable of doing critical thinking, slow critical thinking, right? Your brain and body is saying, we are in danger. Just concentrate on the task at hand. Just survive. Like survival, and that's it.
Yeah.
So a lot of us, we're like, that's so weird. I can't learn. I can't do complex tasks. I feel like I'm forgetting everything. It's because your body and brain and nervous system is constantly in that high cortisol state, which is telling your brain, like, don't waste your time doing slow critical thinking. Like, you need to just act and like survive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of that like feeling of like ADHD, and you can't you can't think critically, or you can't learn something.
Yeah.
A lot of that is because we live in a society that is pushing us into that high cortisol state all the time.
Yeah, and cortisol long term will have effects on the structure of the brain,
Yeah.
the areas of the brain, like how we respond to stress over time. We're not
Yes.
even talking about generational stuff, what
Oh my
we
God.
inherit,
Yes.
but like
The generational stuff
the
is so
generational
interesting.
stuff. So so cortisol is a really, really a hormone that drives a lot of brain dysfunction over time.
Yes.
We need it when
Yeah,
there's a
you need
threat.
it. You need it. I mean, cortisol is like good and bad, right? It's like saying like, when you exercise, if you do a sprint right now, if you got up right now and just like started sprinting, your cortisol would go through the roof. Um, but that's a good thing. You stop and you're like, okay, I'm going to recover. So
Yeah.
the key to cortisol is always give it some recovery. So when you jump in an ice cold bath,
Mm,
like it's very stressful. It's like a shock to your body. But then you relax and you recover from it. So I guess my thing is like cortisol in the way that we're using it in our lives without having any kind of recovery
yeah.
is the real problem.
And a lot of these wearables show you when you're in a stress state and like a rejuvenated recovery state.
It's
So
very eye-opening.
we should, yeah, if you're really concerned about this, but really like feel it in your body, like if you're in a stressful state, are you taking the time to ground yourself, or are you going back to another stressful task and then back to another stressful person or place? It can continue on in that dysfunction. I think a lot of us have just been pushing on thinking that this is normal adaptation,
I know.
living with high cortisol, high adrenaline.
And then when you were saying about brain health, so I think that a lot of people don't know that as you age, you can still grow your brain. You can still strengthen neural connection. You can actually make new brain cells. Like
Mm.
that's something I think most people don't realize. You think like, okay, if you're an adult, there's no way. It's just a decline is what people think, right? But actually, something as simple as walking can grow the hippocampus of your brain. Walking 40 minutes 3 times a week has been shown to actually grow the hippocampus of the brain. And that's something so simple that all of us could be doing to grow our brain.
Mm. And that's our memory center. So we are really for like if you
Yes.
think you have poor short-term memory, go get that blood flowing,
Yeah.
walk every 40 minutes you said a day,
3 times a week.
3 times a week.
I mean, it's doable.
Come on. Come
Yeah.
on. Like and I'll batch it. I'll get on a call, I'll go on a walk.
Yes. Same.
I'll eat 10, 15-minute walk, and they
Yes.
just compounds throughout the day. Sometimes I'll walk to the gym. It's not that far. So it's such a
Amazing.
great thing to do for our health.
I think, yeah, something often people think, oh, walking isn't good exercise or walking. It's like the best exercise, actually.
Mm.
And there's so much data that it can help you grow your brain. It can help you get more nature time. Like, when you're walking outside, your cortisol drops.
Mm.
And that whole thing about opening up your brain, thinking critically, that's why when you go on your walks, you get the best ideas.
I don't love New York because it doesn't have a lot of nature, but I love New York because all I do is walk,
So
especially
great.
in the spring and summer, or even the
So
fall.
great.
It's crazy. You just walk and walk and walk. And I thought to my dad, I go, my dad didn't really work out growing up, but he worked in New York and he walked hours every single
Hours. Yeah.
day. No wonder he was always like lean and healthy,
Yeah.
knock on wood to this day.
Yeah.
And I think that all, I was in Europe a few months ago. We were in Paris. I remember it said 30,000, 40,000 steps
Crazy.
in a day, but I didn't gain any weight.
Yep.
I
You can eat
felt
what you
good.
want. Yeah.
We slept like babies.
Yes.
We're
It's a
made
whole,
to do this.
yes, we are made to move. You can be that crazy person. So we live, America is not necessarily walkable and not like Europe,
For sure.
but you can make your own little street or neighborhood, your little walking destinations. I mean, I'm like that crazy person who's on my phone or just walking, like just walking. Sometimes I'll go without my phone or like anything, just
That's
walk.
good. That's
It's
really
just to
powerful.
refresh my brain and like body. We can, like, before I learned this data, I never would walk in the neighborhood because I was like, if I'm going to go for a workout, I'm going to go to class or I'm going to go to the gym.
Mm.
And then when I understood this data about just like 10 minutes here and there,
Yeah.
and or if you have a call, if you have just downtime between meetings, and then I was like, wait, why am I going to the gym? Like I can just go outside and go for a walk and get some nature. And so I'm like that crazy person who's like walking in the neighborhood like back
Everybody
and
sees
forth.
you all the time.
Yeah, and they're like, hey,
There she is
again, like
again.
there's just pacing back and
But it's
forth.
amazing.
It's amazing.
for me, I don't have, I can't wake up and just meditate because I wake up with all of this energy.
Yes.
My partner will be like, I've never seen someone talk and sing so much when you wake up. Because I'm just like, hey, did you ever think about this? Like, why is the world this way? What about space? Have you thought about space? Like, it just doesn't stop. It's
And
like,
she's like not a morning person. She's
no,
like,
she's quiet.
that's
She does not want
hilarious.
any inputs. Yeah. So,
That's so
so I need to go
funny.
outside
Yes.
and I walk 30 minutes and we have the Venice canals here. But
Yes.
I love that what you said. I don't bring my phone with me.
Yeah.
And so I'll do my whatever affirmations I need to feel good in my body. So I come home, my body feels so calm and regulated, and then I'll meditate and I'll get really deep into
Yes.
meditations. So people viewing and listening, think about it. It's like, when's a good time for you to walk? Some of you need to, I mean, I also get out the morning light, you know?
Yes.
So think about it maybe in the mornings, even if you're cold, bundle up,
Yes.
you know, bundle up. And when I was in Connecticut, I was bundling up when I was in school and doing walks all the time. Like it's possible, but our body needs that movement. And how good is walking for the gut after we eat a meal?
Oh, it is incredible. So, two things. Our gut bacteria loves when we walk. Our gut bacteria get happy when we exercise. So, it's like this thing where, and you love to dance, so I'll tell you. So, basically, what happens is your gut bacteria, when it sees light and it sees movement, it feels movement, they get so happy, they start to dance. Like literally, if you saw them, they would be dancing. And when they dance, they create these things called short chain fatty acids. And these are these beautiful anti inflammatory compounds that go all over your brain and your body and like calm that inflammation.
Amazing. You just told me my gut bacteria dances. This is my favorite clip of the year.
Yeah, I was like, can you imagine? That's so cute. Like,
I keep just thinking these little buggers are dancing
yeah,
with me.
yes,
Now I have a completely different vision in my head when I'm dancing. I'm
yes,
dancing not only for myself,
yes.
but also for the buggers.
And they get so happy and they start dancing and they start releasing these chemicals that you can't even bottle. Like, there's no way to get that anti inflammatory effect from any kind of supplement or anything you would
It's
ever
the most
get.
potent anti-inflammatory. These
Yeah.
short chain fatty acids are,
Yes.
will put out fires in your body.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like,
And your body, your gut bacteria are producing that.
so move more, dance more,
Yes.
work out,
Sunlight, nature.
sunlight, nature. Isn't it amazing that like most of this stuff is free,
Most of the
right?
stuff is free, but most of the stuff is people take it for granted and they don't do it.
Yeah. I mean, and then we think about like all of the things that we can do to override that, right? Like, can I get the system in my house that mimics working out, right? Or mimics walking or
Right.
mimics steps? Like, just go to nature, first of all. I always thought to myself, it's like, I've seen a lot of people heal. I used to work in oncology,
Yes.
right? And
I remember
they
that.
go through chemotherapy, radiation, surgery, whatever it is. And then there's the people who do that and go out in nature and they have this new experience. Like, I can't help but think about this one guy who decided to like go into the Pacific Northwest and every day be in the rivers for 3 hours. And he began to swam across, I believe it was this really big lake in Oregon, and he healed his lymphoma in like 2 months
Wow.
completely. And I thought to myself, okay, let me do some research. And I looked at the science of nature, and there's a science in nature, like visually, aromatically, touch, and the sounds. Ironically, all the things restructure our nervous system to its like default state.
Yes.
So I always think about cancer as something that is like, yes, downstream, we're seeing effects of like metabolic dysfunction. But I wonder if upstream it has so much to do because the nervous system is so dysregulated from its natural state.
Yes.
So the guy's
There's,
walking, he's in nature, he's
yes.
swimming, he's connecting to all the things that we're saying that we take for granted. But ironically, I'm not saying that it's going to cure things, but ironically has the capacity to do the things that we're looking for.
I think that's exactly right. I think there's such a communication with your hormones during a state like inflammatory state like cancer that you can do so much by like lowering the inflammation in your life, like
Exactly.
going out in nature, doing that exercise. Like I, if I were to advise someone who was, say, newly diagnosed and they wanted to do everything in their power, it would be basically nutrition and spend time outside and move. And then also like find your people, like find your community because that is
That's
so
huge.
healing. Yeah.
That's huge. And it's the people. I remember in my hospital, the people who would be in remission for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 5 years of remission are the people that change their relationships. Like you said,
Yes.
like, so they decided this job, this husband, this wife, these friendships don't serve me anymore. And they cut out the things that they were so scared to do. And they started putting themselves first. This autonomy of like, here's who I am. And here's like the person that I want to create in this
And the
world.
people I want to spend time around.
Of
Like,
course,
you
that
are the
feed you, that
result
nurture
of,
you.
yeah, like you are the people that you spend the most time with, not only just like mentally, but also like physically. Gut bacteria, for example, is most closely related to the people you spend the most time with.
Which is incredible.
Like, you could have an identical twin, and they've done these studies, identical twin, but they don't live with you. And you're closer to the people that you spend the most time with than your identical twin.
And even your family.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So, well, your family is usually the people you're spending the most time with.
Right.
So the people
But if they were adopted into another family,
oh yeah,
the gut bacteria is going
then
to
your
mimic.
twin, yes.
That's
so
incredible.
Like the twin, so two twins who live completely separate lives, who have completely separate friends, who have completely separate lifestyles, will have different gut bacteria.
Wow. Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
And that might be that their now hormonal profile is different.
Yes.
Inflammatory profile. Their personalities might even be different based on that.
Yeah.
Right? Mental health. One might have mental health issues, one might not.
100%, because your gut bacteria plays such a huge role in your mental health. And so you are like the people that you spend the most time with. So if you're around, you're eating healthy, you're around healthy people, you're doing, going outside, getting microbes from the environment, you're doing all the things, your trajectory of your life is going to be completely different.
In two partners, do their gut bacteria over time start becoming very similar?
Yes.
Really?
So and I think that like makes people feel really uncomfortable, because sometimes they're like dating someone that they don't necessarily want to become more like, and it's sad, but like, it's like a toxic friendship or relationship.
Yeah.
And yes, the more time you spend with someone, you know this, and I know this intuitively, but this is science. If you spend a lot of time with a toxic person, you are starting to take on some of their toxic bacteria, habits, energy. So you need to distance it's not a choice. It's not like, oh, I'll just, hang out with them and I'll break up with them later. I'll just, this is a friend I've had since I was like 5. Like, I have to be, no, like, you actually have to physically and mentally and spiritually distance yourself from that person.
So the bacteria in your gut can change over time if someone has toxic bacteria that is informing mental health issues or
yes,
pathological behaviors?
Yes.
That's incredible.
So there's a company that sells gut bacteria from elite athletes that you can take, because we know that elite athletes have different gut bacteria than someone who's like sedentary or even a casual athlete. And so people are like, well, let's like bottle up some of these people's gut bacteria, like elite, if you're an Olympic athlete or if you're elite something, and donate your feces. And then they make pills out of it.
Incredible. So these athletes are getting paid for their poop.
Yeah.
What a life.
And if you think about it, it goes all like mental health, physical health. So this is physical health with athletic prowess, but mental health.
Yeah.
That's like the new world of mental health, is like, hey, can we do a transplant of gut from a healthy, healthy person?
Yeah.
Yes, it will cure your mental health issues.
Incredible. But what if the athlete has mental health issues?
Yes, you can get that too. So there's a really, even hormones. So there's this case study, and it's so fascinating. This gentleman, this young guy, was having a lot of GI issues, like really terrible GI issues. And he got a fecal transplant from his mother, who was healthy. And he did a few fecal transplants, and he started to develop weird symptoms, like hot flashes.
Come on.
I'm not joking. And they're like, looked back and they're like, oh, it's because he was getting this fecal transplant from his mother, who was going through menopause at the time.
What?
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. A man's
So
getting hot
he
flashes.
was feeling better. His gut was feeling better. He was starting to, recover, but he was getting these weird side effects. And so I think that's what's the potential with that gut bacteria.
Hmm.
So, and it's also scary. That's why it's banned in the US unless you have one critical GI illness called C. difficile. If
Hmm.
it's like this,
Like
nothing else is
emergency.
working,
Yeah.
emergency. That's the only way you can get a fecal transplant here. But if you think about the potential, you think about, hey, like, okay, if we are talking about gut bacteria changing your physical strength, your athletic prowess, your mental health, your hormones, your, ability to regulate your nervous system, like,
Everything.
can you imagine what it would be like to be able to kind of do that?
Yeah. We would have to determine who are the healthiest mental and physical people on earth and have some sort of like criteria for it.
Yeah,
Because sometimes it's subjective. They'll, yeah, I feel happy, but like, are you really happy? Like, what's going on
that's true.
inside?
That's true.
So
That's true.
until we develop that, no wonder it's banned.
Yes, because people are just scared. Well, and also you can transfer diseases. And what they're not sure of is how many diseases and viruses
Wow.
can you get through your microbiome. And so it's really scary because you can only screen for so many, right?
Right. So if someone has an autoimmune disease, do we know if that can be transferred?
Exactly. That's the fear. It's like we
Wow.
can screen for, communicable diseases,
For
so
sure.
bacterial
Yeah.
diseases, some viral diseases, but we can't test for everything.
And we don't know
And
how it'll
we're
look.
transferring maybe a whole ecosystem into someone else. And so you could end up getting whatever that other person had.
So it sounds to me the best thing right now we can do is eat 30 grams of
Yeah.
protein, 30 grams of fiber,
Yes.
and 3 servings of fermentable
And
foods.
go outside, spend time with good people, get the gut bacteria that way. Um, because we're not there yet to see. We know that we can change our own gut bacteria and we can nurture our own gut bacteria. The next level would be to figure out how do we get bacteria to help with ailments, diseases, mental health
Mm,
issues, beyond what we can already do with our diet. Because, some people do all the dietary things. They're exercising, they have a community, but there's still a disease or a cancer or
yes.
autoimmune issue that they can't solve. So that would be like the next foray.
Mm,
Um, but it's like so exciting to think like, I feel like it's so empowering to be like, okay, I could change my gut in 3 days. I can eat foods that actually feed that gut bacteria and support that gut bacteria. I can do movements that make them super happy. I can do things to grow them. It's like your own little Amazon jungle in
yeah.
there. And I think that's empowering because it's like anybody can do that any day starting today.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
okay, we can work on that. If we think of our right in our belly, right here, we have a jungle. How can we have a flourishing jungle
Yes.
with diversity?
Yes.
And are you a fan of eating the diversity of foods? Is the diversity the big thing?
The big thing, the biggest thing.
The biggest thing,
So,
diversity.
so when they looked at like, okay, what are the things that make the biggest difference? It was eating 30 different plant foods a week. But it sounds like a lot because you're like, what, 30 different
Yeah.
plant foods? It's not 30 different vegetables, it's 30 different spices, 30 different herbs, 30 different seeds or nuts. So if you're cooking with seeds and spices and you're eating a whole array of nuts and berries, I
Mhm.
mean, you're getting 30 a week.
Oh,
And that's the
amazing.
best thing. It's like, just like you said, it's like an Amazon jungle in there. And you want to feed it all the diverse plants and things that it needs to flourish.
Mm.
And so that probiotic foods, the protein, the fiber, and then the like change it up in terms of like your spices, your nuts, your seeds. If you use like that everything but the bagel mix from Trader Joe's, like that has 6 right there, like you're
Yeah.
well on your way to 30.
You make a soup, you can have 10,
Yeah,
15.
exactly.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
I know I love the way that you put up Instagram posts because you'll put up a really cool video
Yes.
and then you'll do your like professional commentary on it.
Yes.
But you find like some really like unique videos where like, whoa, is this even true?
Yes.
I want to know, you've done this for a while. What are 3 of them? 3 of them that like people were like really responding like, oh my God, how is this even possible?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Okay, I posted one today that was talking about how, you know how we talk about plastic straws being really bad for the environment?
Mhm.
Well, paper straws are filled with PFAS.
Paper.
18 out of the 20 paper straws that they tested were full of PFAS. And for those people who don't know what PFAS is they're hormone disrupting forever chemicals that not only stay in our environment, but stay in our bodies for forever, basically. And we know that they disrupt hormones, they contribute to immune dysfunction, to cancers, to all kinds of things that we don't even really know yet. And so it's just like that video to me, the reason why I think people really were like, what? Because it's like, you're doing something that we thought was like better for the environment, but then in turn, we did something that is adding to our toxic load. And so it's like, you can't win. And so everyone's like, well, either use metal straws or just don't use straws at all.
Wow. Okay. That's one.
Okay, that's
I
one.
like that one a lot.
Yes.
Because I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow. That's crazy to me.
Isn't it crazy?
It's crazy because it's supposed to be eco-friendly, but it's actually the opposite of eco-friendly.
I know.
It's just going to circulate.
I know. And it's like, so I mean, it's like, you know, pick your poison, right? Plastics are really bad for the environment, obviously.
And so are PFAS.
Yes.
So it's two poisons. It's crazy.
I know, it's crazy.
And for our body. Okay. What's another good one?
Yeah, so that's one. Another one is, this one is like one of my by far favorites, because if you take bread and you freeze it and then you take a slice and toast it, that bread is completely different and 10 times healthier than it was before you froze it.
Really?
So what happens is some of that carbohydrate in that bread turns into fiber. Like the type of fiber is called resistant starch. It's like the type of fiber that our gut bacteria love. It's like the best food. But also what happens is it lowers the calories, because that resistant starch doesn't get digested. It doesn't get fully digested. So it's not like, it's kind of just bulk. And so you get bread that is not only healthier for your gut, lower blood sugar impact, and less calories by doing that one switch. And if you do it with sourdough bread, even better. If you do it with whole grain sprouted sourdough, bread, even better.
Wow. And is there anything with gluten? Is it
Yes.
Is it less for people who are exposed?
So like if you're someone who wants to have a low, you're not allergic and you don't have celiac, but you want the least.
Yeah, that's me. I do that.
Then you do a sourdough, right? And like a sprouted grains sourdough bread. You put it in the freezer overnight. At least you can keep it in the freezer for longer than that, but you grab a slice when you need it, you toast it, and you have like the best possible version of that same delicious bread.
Amazing.
Yeah. And you can do that with rice, potatoes, any carbohydrate that you cook and cool. Some of that carbohydrate changes into resistant starch.
That's the hack.
It's the hack. Rice, potatoes, bread, pasta. I mean, people love the pasta thing because they're like, wait, you can eat pasta cold the next day. You can warm it up. Once it's changed into resistant starch, you can warm it up.
The starch won't be affected.
Yeah. And you have less glycemic effect. You have more fiber, and you have less calories. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not to say you should eat like mac and cheese and like, burger buns or whatever. It's to say that you take something that you already want to eat and make a healthier version of it.
Amazing.
So that is another one.
I'm excited for your last one.
Okay. The last one is that you should let teens sleep. So a lot of people grew up in households where parents didn't understand the science. So when kids are teenagers, their circadian rhythms are actually shifted and they're going through a lot of growth phase, inside their bodies. Their hormones are changing. And it's a documented fact that they actually fall asleep later and need to sleep in longer. And so all of this idea, it's really contrary to popular belief, but all of this, high schools are basically timed completely wrong. So most high schools are starting super early in the day.
Yeah.
And the reason why is they have sports, they want to do all this stuff after school. But you're really shortchanging the health of our teens and our young adults, preteens, teens, and young adults, because our circadian rhythms run our body. And by having them wake up early when they should be, their circadian rhythms can be shifted by 90 to 120 minutes.
Wow.
So you're ending up really shortchanging their health. So that is one that was really, really eye-opening to a lot of parents and a lot of kids, because they were like, wait a second, like it's actually good to sleep in.
Wow.
Yes, for them it is good to
I
sleep.
had such trouble being in school early for like
Yeah.
3 periods.
Yes.
It was so hard for me to concentrate.
And that's like almost every teen that you talk to. And everyone just thinks, oh, they're lazy. Oh, they're staying up late because they're like, watching TV or playing on video games.
Yeah.
But it's actually like biologic that this is happening. It's
Incredible.
like a pubertal change.
I love these videos. So for the viewers and listeners, go check out Amy's page, and we're gonna give you the handle. But it's so cool. It's so informative.
I'm at Fasting MD. I literally wanted to change it back to my original
You're
name.
still Fasting MD?
I can't change it back.
What do you mean you can't change it back?
Like Meta won't allow me to change it.
No way.
Because it's like after I kind of did it when I was talking a lot about circadian rhythms and eating with circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
But after you have a certain reach, you can't switch it. So it's like, I was like, oh, this is like, I'll just change it back whenever I feel like it, if I want to, because I want to talk about all the things, know? But now it's like stuck.
Well, you had Fasting MD first, right?
Yes.
And then changed?
I first had, I was Amy Shah MD. And then I did Fasting MD, and then I wanted to change it back, but it's hard, like I said.
Yeah, you can go back. Incredible. Yeah, Fasting MD still.
But
all right.
It's all
You're
good.
Still the Fasting MD.
Yeah, but it's all good. We talk about all the things.
Well, okay, so that's where they can find you.
Yes.
What about other places and
I'm
things
at
coming out?
amymdwellness.com. I have a new group coaching program that's at amymdnetwork.com. I have a chai protein powder.
How come I didn't know about this?
You're getting some.
Oh, I'm ready.
Yeah, it's like you can just mix it with water. You can get 20 grams of protein just really easily. It's like
Amazing.
you'll like the ingredients. And then we have a original chai latte, which is delicious too. So, and we have a lot of things coming up down the pipeline.
Well, you have your podcast.
Yeah. Oh, I have that you're going to be on.
I'm going to be on it.
It's called the Save Yourself Podcast.
Okay.
And I'm like, I have to tell you, like, you're one of the first podcasts I ever came on. So I want to thank you for giving me the platform, the opportunity to share the message.
Of course. I told you, you're one of the first doctors I followed.
Yeah.
So I had to give the love,
So grateful.
Yeah.
And it's been great. Like I've learned a lot. I've done a lot of, made a lot of mistakes. But I realize that talking to people directly in this way is so special. Like, to be able to help other people find their gifts and to live them out, like how special is that? There's nothing better.
It's the best. And I love when you're on the camera. I love because you're so personable and knowledgeable and really empowering. Like I know that there's a lot of women over the years, especially hearing the stuff that you've been saying, that's like changed the course of how they're going to be related to their own perimenopause journey and menopause journey.
So grateful.
Like we don't see the fruits of it for you now, but 20 years from now.
Yeah.
A lot of women they're going to go through menopause a lot easier.
Well, I think, if I can do anything to help people, like it's about recognizing your own gifts. It's not about telling people what to do. It's about empowering people to take charge so that you can find your own gifts.
Exactly.
Like that's the goal, right?
Amen. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is a record.
Can't wait for
number 4.
Number 4.
Listen, go back, and if you loved Amy, go listen to the rest of the shows. We talked about, the last one was really nutrition based. We talked about foods. So we talked about fasting. We talked about all the good stuff. So go back and listen to it. And the first one was, again, nutrition. We talked about fasting. We built on everything.
Yeah.
So go check it out. And thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much.
So much.
I appreciate you.
All right.